Welcome to another installment of the Disinformed podcast. As you can see by the title, this is part 3 of our conversation on the D&D OGL 1.1 controversy. You can watch the previous 2 parts before this one to get a good idea of what we're talking about. Yeah, enjoy. Before we go into too much, I want to end the podcast with our predictions, because I feel like that will be really interesting based off of everything we talked about. And we've been talking about this for about 2 hours now.
Well, why don't you open with your prediction, Michael? I'll follow, and then we'll let the expert.
Well, I want to hear if there's anything else that you wanted to talk about first before we
still gotta call bullshit on Wizard's statement.
Oh, shit, you're right. I completely forgot about that. Whew. But
So yeah, we'll go into it. There's not too much more. There's new stuff that happens every day, like trying to keep my little note section updated and like sources and stuff. It's just, I thought I was done with this and what I was going to talk about. Nope, something new today.
Which is why I think it's good that like we're doing it now after it's been out for a while. So but
stuff was happening even today.
Exactly. Like we got a good chunk of stuff, and if we need to do an update later on, then we can. But like that is kind of like we're at a good place where we can do a great summation, which you have done an excellent job doing, of everything that has come up to this point, which, to just peel behind the curtain, it is the 18th. So, if the company just somehow explodes and implodes tomorrow on the 19th, whoopsie daisy. But like, based off of where we are now, I feel like this is a great summation of everything that has gone on. And if we need to do an update, a part whatever, because I'll probably split this up, because I'm not.
Well, you have to at this stage.
I am not subjecting people to a 2-hour episode. I've done that too many times already. I'm not doing that again.
So after the leak that happened on the 5th, I had mentioned that D&D Beyond did tweet on the 10th that they would release a statement soon in regards to the OGL. And it came almost a week after the leak. You would think if this leak was incorrect, this wasn't a real thing, they would say something about it sooner. And they took their time. It was just radio silence from Hasbro, Wizard of the Coast, and D&D Beyond. And D&D Beyond was an odd choice for this communication to come through because, as I had mentioned before, they are a recent acquisition of Wizards of the Coast, and they are probably, most likely, not the driving force behind these changes to the OGL. So it's just odd to me. Again, it's very suspect why they would be the ones leading the charge on this announcement or making any kind of statements in response to backlash.
That is weird.
It feels really scapegoaty to me.
Like direct everyone's hatred to D&D Beyond as opposed to the people that own them. It's very weird.
Mm-hmm.
And the executives that are making these decisions in those other companies. So yeah, that's another thing that I'm just like, bad taste. Really weird. Don't like it. The next thing to happen that just added fuel to the fire was on the 12th, when the Wizards of the Coast employee leaks started happening. A alleged employee, I say that because we don't have like their name or anything. They're hiding their identity so they don't lose their job. Understandable. In this economy, you need a job.
In this economy? Sorry.
Mm-hmm. No, that's where I was going with it. But they sent out an email to D&D content creators and community leaders regarding how leadership was handling the backlash. And if this is like a legit employee, we really have no way of knowing. The people that reported on this said they confirmed with multiple sources that it is someone who currently works for Wizards of the Coast, and we just have to take them at their word. It's just another point of broken trust here. The leak says, and I quote, I'm sending this message because I fear for the health of the community I love, and I know what the leaders at Wizard of the Coast are looking at. They are briefly delaying rollout of OGL changes due to backlash. Their decision making is based entirely on the provable impact of their bottom line. Specifically, they are looking at D&D Beyond subscriptions and cancellations as it is the quickest financial data they currently have. They are still hoping the community forgets, moves on, and they can still push this through. I have decided to reach out because of my time at Wizard of the Coast. I have never once heard management refer to customers in a positive manner. Their communication gives me the impression they see customers as obstacles between them and their money. The D&D Beyond team was first told to prepare to support the new OGL changes and online portal when they got back from the holidays, and leadership doesn't take any responsibility for the pain and stress they cause others. Leadership's first communication to the rank and file on the OGL was 30 minutes on January 11th, 2023. This was the first time they even tried to communicate their intentions about the OGL to employees, and even in this meeting, they blamed the community for overreacting. I will repeat. The main thing leadership is looking at is D&D Beyond subscription cancellations. Now.
So this,
I mean, I can see why, because like even in the group that I was in, several people are like, yeah, I'm not renewing the subscription. I'm going to cancel it as soon as my subscription runs out. So like in a way that does make sense to see like immediate impact, because you're not going to see book sales like you're not going to see those reaction to
the
that
numbers from that.
Yeah,
they
you don't
probably
get real-time
do that,
figures.
like, every quarter or something.
Yeah.
I would imagine
It's not like they
okay,
get
how do
a
we perform
report.
this?
Yeah, they don't get a report every time a book is sold.
That leak from the employee, that came after they had released their statement. Is that correct?
That's before. So
Okay.
they tweeted on the 10th that they were going to release a statement soon. On the 12th is when this employee leak happened. And like people were already canceling their subscriptions and saying, I'm going to jump over to Pathfinder before this. But once that employee leak happened, people were canceling their subscriptions in droves. Like that's all my timeline was on any social media platform, is just all these people confirming, here's your cancellation screen. Here's your cancellation screen. That's all it was.
Wow.
It was like a mass exodus. And I think later there was a report that they had supposedly lost 40,000 plus subscribers.
Ooh,
and that came this week that was reported.
Oh.
So it's a lot.
Yeah.
That's honestly, especially those are people that pay for their subscription, right? So that, like, I don't know what the subscription is, but that's already going to be at least the money from one publishing company that's at that, 750,000 tier, because you're looking at 25% of that.
It's $2.99 a month for the base tier. So there's the free version, and then the base tier is $2.99 a month, and then the one that's supposed to be like for dungeon masters, you can have unlimited characters, you can share content that you've purchased with your party, all that was $5.99 a month.
So this is probably in the ballpark of $150,000-ish a month that they'd be losing.
Yeah.
Potentially, yes.
And that is at least one publisher that's about the limit of the tier to get into the expert tier.
Yeah, I mean, assuming these people didn't come back and we're going to keep it, then, you just lost a couple $1 million a year. So it definitely has an impact. And it makes sense that, like you were saying, Michael, why that would be what they would initially be checking, because that's the easiest way to get real-time figures of the impact that this would be having.
There was another employee leak too that came on the 13th in the form of a draft FAQ that was supposed to accompany OGL 2.0. I haven't seen this. I've seen snippets of it. The people that it was sent to were saying, like, we talked to lawyers. We think that there's wording in this that could potentially reveal who leaked it. So we're doing it in snippets. We're not releasing the whole thing.
Okay.
So
that's smart.
And because of that, and because I haven't seen the whole thing, I'm not focusing too much on it. It did double down on the deauthorization of the original OGL as well as the royalty structure. And that was last Friday. Now, 3 hours after that last employee link is when Wizards finally made a statement through D&D Beyond. That's also the day that the OGL was supposed to go into effect. There was a canceled D&D live stream on the 12th where they were supposed to announce all these changes and go over that FAQ. And it was just like, bye, we're not doing it. Actually, no stream today.
I wonder why.
And then the next day, this statement was made. So it did roll back many of the changes that people had problems with, but the wording of it doesn't leave a good taste in my mouth again. It seems very gaslighty, and there are some straight up lies in it. So now the fun part, the part that we all love, lying. I'm going to read you the statement in its entirety. I'm going to try to do it with the least amount of sass that I can, because like I said, this did not, when I was reading it the first time through, it did not feel good to me. I was like, come on, guys, this is not, who works for their PR department? They're doing a bad job. They need to be fired.
This job was bad and you should feel bad.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to do it with minimal sass, if not any. And yeah, just, call bullshit. Just scream it out. What doesn't feel genuine, what sounds like lies, just,
okay.
Follow your heart.
Okay.
And they said, when we initially conceived of revising the OGL, it was with 3 major goals in mind. First, we wanted the ability to prevent the use of D&D content from being included in hateful and discriminatory products.
Bullshit. I don't think they gave a shit about that.
I disagree, because that's what I was talking about, where I was thinking they want oversight of how their product. So I agree with it, because that was what I was thinking that they wanted. So I would say that might actually be accurate.
I would be a lot more on board with it if there was some major case of like this D&D group that was just being way too racist or something like that. Like, usually when people are like, well, we got to moderate things now, is usually in response to some sort of controversy.
Well, that was back in the day. Now a lot of people try to be proactive because of all the controversy that's happened. Now, what I will say is we'll find out the next 2 points here. But what I will say is that I suspect that neither of the next 2 are probably the real one. And this being number one, we wanted to make sure that, our content was used in a hate-filled way. I would say number 1 is obviously money. We wanted to do this because we want money.
I really don't think that sure, yes, it's good to make sure that the things that your brand is associated with doesn't have, anything that is problematic. Sure. I would argue that wasn't there at all justification or reasoning behind it.
I would say it's probably one of the reasonings, but I would say that all the next 2 probably, we'll find out, but I'd say the next 2 probably fall in that same category of oh, this is nice. But I think the end all be all is just, we just wanted money. We could get royalties. We could own stuff. We just want the money. But also it's nice to, not have hate, because if our stuff is associated with hateful stuff, then that would mean controversy, which would mean backlash, which would mean less money.
Yeah.
Yes. Capitalism is the root of all evil. Second, we wanted to address those attempting to use D&D in Web3, blockchain games, and NFTs by making clear that OGL content is limited to tabletop role-playing content like campaigns, modules, and supplements. And third, we wanted to ensure that the OGL is for the content creator, the homebrewer, the aspiring designer, our players, and the community, not major corporations for their own commercial and promotional purpose.
Unless your name is Hasbro.
That must have taken so much out of you to say that with a straight face. Wow, I'm impressed. I was crossing my eyes during that when you were saying that. I was like, I wouldn't be able to say that straight with a straight face. Yeah. It's all about the homebrewer. It's all about you. You points at camera. Yeah, exactly.
About the little guy.
It's about you, the person listening that actually buys stuff from us.
That's right.
Not us. It's never about us. It's always about you, the customer.
And since y'all are are not feeling very good about this first paragraph and the bullshit there within, it is important to note that they don't give a fuck about NFTs, especially Hasbro. Hasbro released Power Ranger NFTs, so
Oh my God. I was going to
bullshit.
say that was the only one I could be like, because there have been cases like the one I can think of off the top of my head was with Tolkien's estate, where there was a group that tried doing Lord of the Rings NFTs, and the Tolkien estate was like, no, we have ownership of this IP. You are not making money off of this. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I know there's a bunch of other ones. I didn't know Hasbro went into like the Square Enix of it and were like, oh, let's get into the blockchain. Sure, why not? I didn't know that. Dumb. Stupid.
Okay.
Sorry, continue.
I gotta get my straight face back on. Driving these goals were two simple principles. One, our job is to be good stewards of the game, and two, the OGLs exist for the benefit of the fans. Nothing about those principles has wavered for a second. That is why
That's right, not for a second.
I'm gonna stop complimenting your poker face because I feel like I'm gonna be doing that the whole time. So blanket compliment to your ability to hold strong and true in the face of bullshit.
Are you saying you question the motives and values of these multi-billion-dollar companies, Michael?
Yes.
All right, we shall continue.
Press onward.
That is why our early drafts of the new OGL included the provisions they did. That draft language was provided to content creators and publishers so their feedback could be considered before anything was finalized. In addition to language allowing us to address discriminatory and hateful conduct and clarifying what types of products the OGL covers, our drafts included loyalty language designed to apply to large corporations attempting to use OGL content. It was never our intent to impact the vast majority of the community.
The only thing that is true about that statement was I definitely don't think that it was an actual leak. I think that it was purposely leaked so that they can, hey, how does this look to people? Oh, okay, we'll step back. It's the testing the waters principle, so to speak. That's the only thing I would say has been true about this whole thing, is that they're like, we put it, to some people to see their thoughts, like, maybe they originally pretended that it was just towards these big publishers, but I definitely think they wanted the community to respond to it. It
was never our intention to shoot ourselves in the foot. Oops.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I specifically don't believe that this was a draft at all.
No.
In the leak, and other people have reported on it, and I was going to comment on that report later, but they confirmed that publishers were given NDAs to attend that meeting. And when they got to that meeting, they were given contracts to sign with sweetheart deals told that if they didn't sign this one and they waited to sign when it was released to the public, they would have a higher royalty structure than they would with what they were presenting at that time.
Oh, that's like super shady. It's like either sign it now or going, gone.
Yeah, and you don't send out contracts with drafts. You just don't.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because they mention in the second paragraph that you read, I think they used the word draft twice, right? So they're really emphasizing the fact that it was a draft, by making sure to mention it multiple times. Yeah, just a draft, guys. This is, why are you getting so serious about that? Oh, 3 times. There you go. Yeah, 3 times.
We haven't released it yet.
It's guys, this wasn't even the real thing. This was just like, we threw some ideas on some paper here. I mean, it's just a draft. You guys know drafts. I mean,
yeah, it's all good. I
mean, they made the eraser for a reason, guys.
They just called it. Yeah, exactly. Like, I agree with you. I definitely think that was what they were going to say. And then if they had to change it, if people were, getting hot and bothered by it, then, it was always a draft. Ignore the fact that it said final document, on there or any of that.
This contract is legally binding.
Yeah, no, that's just how we label all of our documents. That's
just in case.
Please, cover our bases.
Yeah. You'll love this next sentence. However, it is clear from the reaction that we rolled a 1. It has become clear that it is no longer possible to fully achieve all three goals while staying true to our principles. So here's what we're doing. The next OGL will contain the provisions that allow us to protect and cultivate the inclusive environment we're trying to build and specify that it covers only content for TTRPGs. That means that other expressions such as educational and charitable campaigns, live streams, cosplay, VTT uses, etc., will remain unaffected by any OGL update. Content already released under 1.0A will also remain unaffected.
Oh, so they're not even consolidating from 3 to 2, or sorry, 3 to 1. They're now consolidating 3 to 2. They're not even removing anything that falls under 4th edition, i.e. the 1A. That's really interesting.
Well, I mean, it makes sense that this way, anybody that already had something up and running, they're basically saying, hey, it's going to be business as usual for you, right? Because no changes to you. So it's really just changes for new people going forward. Essentially, you're grandfathering people in.
Well, they only said that for 1A, which falls under... Oh, no, I'm sorry.
1A is 5th edition. So,
yes,
like, this
you're right.
Tal'Dorei Reborn, it was published under 1A. It'll continue to be under 1A.
Yes.
So the new one will not affect this particular book.
Yeah, so you're just grandfathering people in. So that makes sense. And at least that, I guess that's to, stop the fear in people that were already operating. Like, hey, don't worry, it's business as usual, no changes. I'm guessing.
I just think it's odd that they include charitable campaigns and live streams and BTT uses, because in the section that I read you about what is included and what isn't, it already said that those weren't under an OGL and wouldn't be affected. So it's like, why are you mentioning that they won't be affected here?
They forgot which draft they were on.
What's also interesting to me that they're still saying that a new OGL is coming. Like, it's not like, oh, well, this was just something we were testing out. Don't worry, guys. We're going to stick with the original one. It's worked for 23 years. We'll just continue on. It's
but
like
that money, though. They
yeah, exactly. It's like, no, there's still an OGL coming, a new one. And it's still going to have changes. We just don't know what those changes are going to be, which is very fascinating, especially since they took some time to pause before they release a statement. I would understand a little bit more if they said, hey, sorry for the delay in response. We're sorry because, these are the 3 goals, blah, blah, all the bullshit they already said. But also, we've actually crafted what the new draft, the second pass of the next OGL is. And here it is, guys. So what do you think of this one? Instead, it's just like, oh, there's still a mystery OGL coming. We know you didn't like the draft that got leaked. So we're scrapping that. There's a mystery one coming. But we're not going to tell you what it is. Just trust us, it'll all be okay.
Yeah, it's probably going to be the same thing. Maybe some words are changed. Maybe it's not as bad. But they're going to wait until this thing blows over and the next controversy or the next 10th controversy comes on. And they're like, oh, everyone has forgotten about this because people have the attention span of a dead goldfish. Mm-hmm. So just throw it on there. And they didn't
say anything about not doing, like... royalties and stuff like that.
That is our next paragraph, actually.
Okay.
It's a long one. It's a big one.
Yeah, let's react, because I feel like let's just let her say her whole thing. Maybe call bullshit, or maybe truth, because I feel like most of this is going to be bullshit, except for like maybe 1 or 2 sentences that might be construed as true, maybe, probably. Because I'm just gonna flat out say that most of this is gonna be bullshit.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on like one of those like little like clips there with like the Steve Harvey Family Feud thing where like people are buzzing the thing before he finishes the question.
Yeah, exactly. Naked grandma. Naked what now? Sorry. One of my favorite clips from that show.
They do go on to say what it will not contain is any royalty structure. It will also not include the license back provision that some people were afraid was a means for us to steal work. That thought never crossed our minds. Under any new...
Sorry, continue.
We just explicitly said we were going to take work and we were going to own it. We explicitly said we were going to own all your work, but it never crossed our mind that we would actually own it.
Just because you said, or just because you rolled a crit 20 on your insight check, doesn't mean that we weren't untrue.
To our nat 1 on deception.
Yeah.
It says, under any new OGL, you will own the content you create. We won't. Any language we put down will be crystal clear and unequivocal on that point. The license back language was intended to protect us and our partners from creators who incorrectly allege that we steal their work simply because of coincidental similarities. As we continue to invest in the game that we love and move forward with partnerships in film, television, and digital games, that risk is simply too great to ignore. The new OGL will contain provisions to address that risk, but we will do it without a license back and without suggesting we have rights to the content you create. Your ideas and imagination are what makes this game special, and that belongs to you.
I love that. Without suggesting, as if the first pass was just as, oh, it was this, you read it wrong. I guess it suggested that we might own your stuff, but that's not actually what it said.
Yeah,
No, that's explicitly what it said. So it wasn't a suggestion. You straight up said it.
We definitely went back to the Victorian era because there's a lot of gaslighting going on here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And the next part fucking kills me. I don't know if I can keep a straight face or not be sassy about it.
I feel like you can be sassy since we already have ascertained that the whole thing is essentially bullshit. So by all means, be as sassy as you want.
Sass away. A couple of last thoughts. First, we won't be able to release the new OGL today because we need to make sure we get it right, but it is coming. Second, you're going to hear people say that they won and we lost because making your voices heard forced us to change our plans. Those people will only be half right. They won, and so did we.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that line of the thing before, and it confused me because I'm like, what does that mean? Like, they won and so did we. Like, how did you win?
Did you see the second? It was the second or third Thor where they're on the other planet in the fighting ring, and Jeff Goldblum's in it.
Yeah, that's
I've seen it.
Ragnarok.
Yeah, Ragnarok. So the scene where they start the riot, and then Jeff Goldblum's character falls out of the pod and is just like, "You did it, guys! You won the riots!" Like, we all are winners. Because if you don't have someone to riot against, like, what are you rioting for? That sentence reminds me of that whole scene.
It really does.
That is such a good analogy. I love that. That is well done.
It's a shame that that's when I stopped watching, so I don't really know what happened to this character, but I assume that he just, like, everything just, went out perfectly fine. He went on his merry way, right?
I think he mutated into a fly.
Yeah.
Ooh, good reference. Good reference.
No, so yeah, but I mean, it's super interesting because it's such a it's like, oh, you'll hear people saying they won because they forced, or like they made sure your voices were heard, and so they were right in that they won, and it's like, okay, so you admit that people doing this helped people's voices get heard, but then when you say, but so did we, it's like, well, how? Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well,
they go on to explain that in the next paragraph. How they think
I did it again. Damn it! I'm sorry.
It's okay. That sentence, like, they're only halfway. They won, so do we. They go on to say, our plan was always to solicit the input of our community before any update to the OGL. The drafts you've seen were attempting to do just that. We want to always delight fans and create experiences together that everybody loves. Everyone loves. That's not the word they used. We realized we did not do that this time, and we are sorry for that. Our goal was to get exactly the type of feedback on which provisions worked and which did not, which we ultimately got from you. Any change this major could only have been done well if we were willing to take feedback, no matter how it was provided, so we are. Thank you for caring enough to let us know what works and what doesn't, what you need, and what scares you. Without knowing that, we can't do our part to make the new OGL match our principles. Finally, we'd appreciate the chance to make this right. We love D&D's devoted players and creators who take them on so many incredible adventures. We won't let you down.
Oh my god.
Again.
So they were pretty much saying, like, oh, we were planning on doing this. We were planning on letting everyone know, 2-3 days before we release it. Sure, yeah, why not? The leak just, it sped up the timetables. Oh no, what are we going to do?
That's the best they could do with 8 days of prep time to come in to craft their statement. The best they could come up with after 8 days was that.
You know what, Hasbro? Hire us. We'll be your new PR team because we come
can
up with
spin anything.
That's right. I was already playing devil's advocate for you in the start. Come on, Hasbro.
Yeah, you want a just listen to this podcast, and that is a perfect resume for why we are a better PR than whoever
That's
Joe
right.
from accounting you decided to hire on for a second job.
Have you found yourself in a kerfuffle and you need to pull the wool over the people's eyes? You want to disinform the people? Hire the Disinformed podcast.
Ooh, done. Sold. Disinformed PR team.
Perfect. Yeah, there's just straight up lies that are provable throughout this. If you've seen that document, it had an effective date of the 13th. You don't put an effective date on a draft. You don't send out a draft to publishers and content creators with NDAs and contracts.
You don't say that you're going to release it to the public for consideration when it's
already in effect. Like, why would the public's consideration mean anything to you when you're like, it goes into effect on this day? Like, it's bad. And if they thought that we were an obstacle to their money before, like we are now, people are jumping ship. And other publishers are making it easy to do it. Like Paizo put out discount codes. Other publishers put out discount codes on their stuff. There's people hosting like Learn to Play Pathfinder because it is a more complicated system.
Yeah, I always considered I always called Pathfinder version 1 D&D 3.75 because it was a continuation of 3.5. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what people wanted. That's why it was created, because the other choice was a super watered down, super simplified version for 4th, which, I mean, I liked 4th as a great way to get people into D&D, sure, but like that's not what people that have been playing for decades wanted, and they wanted something new. They were promised something new, and then it's like, here's Baby's first D&D, or Baby's first pen.
Baby's first D&D campaign.
Honestly, yeah, that as someone that has played several campaigns from 4th E, I could say without a doubt 3.5 was way more complicated, and it was great because I was probably the most experienced, which isn't saying much, out of my D&D groups in college that played 4th E, and everyone was able to understand it perfectly well because it was for dummies. So,
like, that's not even the end of it. Like I said, like something new comes out about this every single day. So there was another leak from an employee on the 16th regarding Wizards of the Coast plan for 1D and D&D Beyond moving forward that included a $30 a month price tag with significantly less features for lower priced tiers. And AI is coming back again with AI Dungeon Masters. So, what the fuck? Like, the highest tier right now is $6. They want to make it $30 a month for nothing extra, for just the highest tier how it is now.
So, I can picture what happened in this meeting, especially with the AI DM. So, this guy is sitting there. He takes this longest rip from a bomb, like the biggest rip no one has ever seen. Like, man, you know what slows this game up? Having people tell you what's happening in the game. What if we were to create this computer program, right? Follow me. This computer program that, whenever you do something to it, it reacts. Where and we can even go a step further. Like, instead of it just telling you like in text or audio format, let's have this whole game in some sort of, or this pen and paper in this like virtual space, where you can actually see this character, where you can see your character and you can customize it, as much as you want. And you have all these weapons and everything's calculated by this computer, right? And you interact with the game with this pen and paper. With this pen and paper.
Blowing my mind, man.
And the DM is the computer. Isn't that like the craziest idea?
And the
you've
bong
ever
just
had?
goes around the table.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone else takes a big rip and they're like, "Whoa, man, you're so smart. Why make people make the computer do everything?"
Yeah, that's.
And they'll call it Neverwinter Nights.
I think that's always been. I think that's always been the biggest criticism of D&D is just the people, the fact that you have to play with other people, right? I mean, that's
the best part of D&D. Like it blows
No,
my
exactly,
mind that they're
exactly.
trying to remove people from the game.
yeah,
Because-
especially the DM, like
Yeah.
No, we can do it even better. I hold on. I gotta set better. We can add other people. So you can have other people from around the world, like a massive amount of people, a massively like multiplayer, like online experience where they all interact with this AI DM. And we could call it like a role-playing game, like an RPG, but like, what did I just say? Like massively multiplayer online, like an MMORPG. I don't think anyone has come up with the idea before.
So,
Like, I got
Michael, when did you start working for Wizards of the Coast, and when were you going to tell us? Because this is like verbatim of what came out of a meeting, I think.
Well, let's just say that one of those leaks was certainly me. Plot twist.
So yeah, after the $30 price tag came out, even more people are like, "Yeah, I'm going to cancel my subscription." And then that's when some who was it that originally reported this? I have the article somewhere, but I can't find the name of who originally reported it. But that is when it's got reported that 40,000 plus people had already like said bye to their subscription. And then more talks are coming of boycotting the D&D movie, because as much as they need the D&D Beyond subscriptions to not bleed out, they also need that movie to do well, because there are big actors in it.
Yep.
I'm sure it cost a pretty penny to make. And if it flops, then I have a feeling the shareholders at Hasbro are not going to be happy.
Well, not just that, but I, if memory serves correct from what I was reading, I think they're hoping that this will be like the start of like its own cinematic universe where they'll be able to build a bunch of stuff off of this. So it's not even like they need it to succeed as a one-off, but they're really hoping that this jumpstarts an entire franchise of movies.
So we need it to go the way of The Mummy. Got it. With Tom Cruise. Not Brendan Fraser. Absolutely phenomenal person. But yeah.
The Brendan Fraser's The Mummy was my sexual awakening, just so everybody knows. I know you guys were talking about that.
You know what?
Someone mentioned sexual awakening on one of the episodes. So I was like, that's where my first thought went, was The Mummy.
See, for me, it was actually The Scorpion King. And it was the CGI that was my sexual awakening.
That explains so much about you.
It was weird science for me.
Beautiful CGI glory. Oh, I mean, Weird Science is absolutely beautiful. An absolutely phenomenal piece of media. But
if only I could code well enough to create that genie.
If only I can code well enough to CGI The Rock into a scorpion body.
Okay, so going back to what you wanted, Michael, with the predictions, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen, I guess?
So, the best word I can use, and it's probably not a great word to use, but balkanization. I honestly feel like this is going to be the start of D&D, like we'll probably still see the act of it being called D&D, sure. But just like Q-tips, just like Kleenex, sure. But I think people are going to be getting I don't want to say knockoff brand. That would belittle the actions of these
great
people.
Value brand.
Yes, we're going to see the other ones that people will still call Q-tips, but they're not. They're cotton swabs. You know, they're still going to call Kleenex. They're not. They're, cotton tissues, like, or whatever. Like, people are still going to call these other things D&D because, like, we don't, like, are you going to call them out pen and paper? For the people that know what that is, sure. But, like, I think everyone is going to start calling these other new and exciting role-playing games as, like, they call it D&D, and that's the umbrella term. They're not referring to Dungeons and Dragons. That is the role-playing D&D game, right? Because people aren't creative with coming up with terms or words or anything like that.
Also, TTRPG just doesn't roll off the tongue quite as nice as D&D does.
Exactly.
Although I do like saying TT.
TTs.
I love me some TTs.
Yes. TNA RPG. Let's go. But anyway, like that's what I feel like it's going to splinter. We're going to see this like kind of a renaissance of sorts where we have all these people that are like, you know what, instead of like not necessarily being under the yoke of D&D, but instead of relying on D&D and everything that came with it, now they were going to have the freedom to do what they want. Yes, they kind of have to, but they're going to create these other more unique, more beautiful things. Like we're going to see a lot more shadow runs of sorts to kind of just like be that kind of person, just say a smaller but still recognizable a role-playing game, right? We're going to see a lot more of those, but in the fantasy setting, because we already have seen that in a lot of other genres, like science fiction or even like science fantasy, like with Shadowrun. We're going to see that a lot more with fantasy. So we'll have probably a lot more low fantasy, a lot more high fantasy, a lot more realistic fantasy, a lot more medieval things. Anything that would fit under this umbrella term of fantasy, I feel like we're going to start seeing these other things poke out of the woodwork. And be
so you think the actual D&D like brand is going to shrink in its market share?
Yes.
How much do you think maybe by?
I wouldn't know. I would say that it will substantially, because like it's when your whole business model relies on a community and you have shafted this community so hard. I don't even want to use sexual innuendo to describe it, which is surprising given me and my proclivities. But when you burn what feels like every single bridge between yourselves and the community, this community is full of so many creative people that I would argue the only main reason why a lot of people use D&D was because it was already made. Like, why, and I mentioned this before, why reinvent the wheel when you already are given the wheel? But now that the wheel is behind a paywall, now the wheel has been given to you by someone that slaps your face every time you try and talk about the wheel or something like that. My analogy is getting away from me, but now you're not in a position where the wheel is freely given, or you don't want that wheel. You're going to create your own wheel, right? Yeah, there'll be groups and people that like will fail. There will be someone that comes up with a square wheel. Sure, whatever. But I feel like by the time this is settled, we are going to see a renaissance of way more unique, way more interesting role-playing games. And we're kind of seeing that with these one-offs that we've played, with these other board games. Like we've had this board game renaissance going on. And I feel like now the pen and paper role-playing games are going to now be merged into it, to where we're going to see a bunch. Will there be a D&D killer? Probably not. D&D will still be here. D&D has that, the inertia behind it. It's been going on for close to 50 years, sure, but I feel like it's going to lose in its importance. Nothing will ever topple it, but other people.
It's been around for 50 years.
Exactly. It's just like any time an MMORPG came out and they're like, oh, this is the WoW killer. This is the WoW killer. Nothing has toppled WoW. It's still around. I know people that play it a lot. But it's not as culturally important. It's only important now to the people that are involved with it. You don't hear people talking about World of Warcraft nowadays. If you go back even 10, 15 years, like World of Warcraft was way more in the cultural zeitgeist than it is today. And I feel like that is what is going to happen with D&D. It's still going to have, people still, like if anyone has played an MMORPG, they've most certainly have heard of WoW. And there'll still be, the effects of WoW. Like one thing I still see when I play video games nowadays is the rarity system for loot drops. For anything, any kind of game, you always have white is common, green is uncommon, blue is rare. If I recall correctly, purple is like
epic,
ultra rare. Yeah, epic. And then orange is like the legendary. And that was started from World of Warcraft as far as I'm aware. And so, yeah, it still will have its influence and everything like that, but you won't get as much people outside of it paying attention to it.
I like your faith in humanity. I think I am much more pessimistic for just in my outlook on humanity in general, I guess, because I tend to lean towards this is a flash in the pan. It's definitely got people upset now. It's in the headlines now. And I think 6 months from now, it'll just be things the way they were, at the end of November, right? I think that this will be a brief blip in D&D's income, and I think a lot of the people that, let's say 40,000 subscribers did drop, I think a lot of them will probably come back. I think this is like a momentary outrage, like, screw this, and then they drop it, and then it's like, actually, I kind of miss it. That was convenient. And we're all supposed to get together Saturday, so all right, screw it. Here's my $2.99. I think unless they do something significant, so they've come out with this statement and said, hey, we're not going to do, royalties or anything like that. Now, if they completely 180 that, so soon after just saying, hey, sorry, our bad, we're not going to do it. And then they, on the new OGL, they do end up instituting some sort of royalty thing, then everything I'm saying is off the table. But assuming that they don't do something so idiotic, since they explicitly said they're not going to now, then I doubt. Then it's really just business as usual. Nothing major is going to change. People aren't going to have to pay royalties. They're not going to have their content that they're creating being owned by somebody else. So then it really is just the same as things were in last year and every other year before that since 2000. So I think that, this will have upset people, but since nothing actually took effect and nothing really changed and nobody's pockets were actually, dipped into and had money removed, I think it'll probably just blow over and things will go back to normal. I do think you're right. I think that there will be alternatives that'll pop up, but I don't think it'll actually eat into the market share of D&Ds any more than it would have if this had never happened. Because I think alternatives would have naturally popped up. They always do. There already are alternatives out there, right? So I think that would have naturally happened, and they will be, varied in popularity. But I don't think that this particular incident will probably impact D&D or Wizards in the long run, really. At least in my opinion. I just don't have enough faith in humanity to stick to their values and say hey, this is uncalled for, even because it didn't actually happen. And I think that we're all creatures of comfort and of habit. And I think that when you're used to doing something a certain way, you might get a momentary outrage, but ultimately you'll probably just go back to doing it.
The only question I have is, do you think they will eventually have a modified OGL that will come out?
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Okay. I
100%. I just don't think that they'll have, they'll definitely do it. They already said they will. I just don't think that there will. I think that you probably won't hear any talks of royalties for at least 5 years. Just because they've already instituted hey, we're not going to do it. And I think that if they were to kick something in, in the next year or even 2 years, it's too close to this.
You got to wait.
Yeah, that it would be what the hell? And then there could be some serious impact to them, because then people might actually be oh, well, screw this. Because it's a secondary outrage, right? You've had this initial outrage. And I think if they don't do anything stupid, it'll just blow over. People go back to normal. And then maybe 5 years from now, you come out with a royalty thing. And then, people are well, it was 5 years ago. Okay, whatever, right? They could roll it out in a smarter fashion then maybe, if they're going to do it. Which is why I think that they're probably not going to do anything like that in the near future. And I think that it'll all just blow over and people go back to normal, because it's like anything. It's you just get used to it, right? You get the new norm, right? When a new road construction comes in, they create a bridge and then they do tolls on it. And they might say because I remember this happened in Vancouver, they built a new bridge, they had a toll on it, and they said, this is just a temporary toll. It's just to recoup the cost of the bridge, right? So this, it should only take about 2 years to recoup the cost and it'll all be well. And then 15 years later, that toll's still on there because people just get used to paying the toll, right? And so long after the toll was supposed to get removed, because it was only there to recoup the cost, people are still paying it, but you just get used to paying it. You get used to that daily life, and it becomes the new norm. And I think that's probably what's going to happen with this. I think people are outraged now, but it'll blow over. and then they'll all just kind of come back and into the fold. But I just, a little pessimistic that way. I'd like to think that we'd all be like, fuck them. But I suspect that we won't.
Yeah, I'm not asking for you to give your best case scenario. We're predicting the future. Whether or not that's the future that you would like, that's irrelevant. That is what you think will happen.
What about you, Jesse?
I'm kind of in the camp where I think that they've royally fucked themselves. I don't foresee them recovering from this and things going back to normal 100%. I think they'll probably get some people back, but I think the community is very strong on this point and pretty savvy on ways they can get around using D&D products. D&D Beyond did release a statement today saying that they were going to release a new draft OGL to the public on or before Friday, and that they will open feedback to it similar to the one D&D playtest that they're doing. So we'll see what happens with that. Many people are kind of taking it with a grain of salt. It's like, well, this is fine and dandy. This is a nice apology, and it sounds better than the first one you guys put out, but we're not taking you at your word until we see that OGL, and if it has A, B, and C in it, sure, we'll be okay with it. If A, B, and C are not in it, no. And then it's 50-50. Others think it's too little too late and that the damage has been done. For me personally, I probably will not buy any more D&D content from Wizards of the Coast. If I do buy something, I'm going to look secondhand, like Booksman's or Zia, because that book's already been bought and purchased. Now it's just circulating through.
They don't get your money.
Yeah, they don't get my money. Zia does.
Exactly.
Bookman's does.
Which is
local
totally
small businesses do.
Exactly. Support local. I've always said that. That's why I'm a big supporter of Bad Dragon. So
it's true. Michael does love Bad Dragon, but I'll continue to play 5e. I've been playtesting 1D&D. I've been getting all of those PDFs, and I don't think they're going to differ too much from the content that they put out in 2024. So if there is something in there I wanted to use, I've already gotten it for free. But honestly, I haven't been impressed with the material that's in there. Some of the changes I don't agree with. They're significantly nerfed some abilities and classes, and it just seems like it's not going to be fun. And as a dungeon master that primarily DMs for people that have never played the game, I like 5e. It is very streamlined. It's easy to understand and help people get into the game. So I will probably continue to run those games. I'm just not going to give Wizard any of my money, and I think a lot of other people feel the same. So they, like Michael said, they're not going to die out. Nothing's going to topple them. They haven't given themselves a fatal injury from this, but they've damaged their reputation and the trust within the community, and I think it'll be a very long while before they can get that back, if they get it back at all.
Yeah, they didn't take double their maximum HP and damage, so
see, I guess
that rolled off just like the crit fail on their thing. So there you go.
I really do hope that you guys are right. I like your guys' outlook more, and I think where I'm coming from probably is more just like a self-reflection there. Like, you're saying like, oh, I'm not going to give them any more of my money, right? And I think that is a great conviction, right? Like you're saying, like, here's my belief, I'm going to stick to it, and this is why I'm not going to give them the money. And then I think on my end, I'd be like, oh, but then if I don't do it, then I don't get to do this, and I really enjoy it. Fuck it, fine. And I think that I just would cave too easily, like for certain things. I mean, like, but I don't know.
I feel like that's a sentiment that a lot of people would share, and that is why I think, like, her and I agree that it's not dead. D&D isn't going to just disappear. There's going to be a lot of people that are like, well, yeah, I don't want to start anything new. Like, I'll admit, like, I didn't want to learn Pathfinder because I knew that was an entirely new system. So will I continue using 5e? Probably. I mean, if my group, I'm not the DM of my group, if my DM declares that we're using a different system, then I'll suck it up and do it. But like, as it stands, yeah. Will I give them any more of my money? No. I mean, I haven't given them money in years. I don't plan on changing that at all.
So I'm going to give them as much money as I have for the last year.
Ever since I looked at a Dungeon Master's guide and saw that it was like $45 or something like that.
It's $50. Unless you get it on sale. Amazon does sales every once in a while.
The 4th edition Dungeon Master's guide is rated at $35. So how's that for inflation, y'all?
Are you both going to go see the movie and watch the TV show when it's all released?
No, I was going to boycott that movie primarily because Jeremy Irons isn't in it. And I know that Jeremy Irons was in one of the bad D&D movies from like the 90s?
The early 2000s, late 90s.
Early 2000s?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
I'm one of those weird people that will boycott any D&D movies that come out if they do not have Jeremy Irons. Now, if I do find out that he is in it, I will boycott it for another reason. But as it
so you're
stands,
just not going, period. Gotcha.
I'm not going, period. But that is my reason that I will tell people if they ask me why. They're like, "Oh, you like D&D? Why?" Because Jeremy Irons isn't in it, and he's a phenomenal person. I loved his acting in Aragon, and I despise the movie because I love the books. He was still phenomenal Brom. I'll just put that out there. Anyone has a disagreement with it, they can tell me in the comments. But I even got the video game, which everyone knows because people did point that out in earlier podcast episodes. So there you go. Jeremy Irons is a fantastic fantasy actor. So fight me.
Will you be going to the movie and TV show, Jesse?
All I will say is that there are ways to watch movies and TV shows without going to the theater.
With your own little black flag? Yar!
Yes. Raise the flag, hoist the colors, and I'll leave it at that. If you really want to see the movie, there are ways to do it without going to the theater.
Totally agree. And I think that's
streaming is
how I will also be seeing it. Yeah.
And as far as like the TV show goes, like
I didn't even know there was a TV show, to be perfectly honest.
There's other D&D TV shows that I have more interest in, like The Legend of Vox Machina, that is content that I find more interesting than anything that's officially D&D branded. I wasn't like fully behind the movie to begin with anyway. It was one of those things where I wasn't even planning on seeing it in theaters. If they put it like on HBO Max or something later, I might watch it there, but I'm not spending money to go see it or buy it on Blu-ray or DVD. But yeah. There's other D&D related content that I like more and would rather put my money into.
Yeah, I agree. I'd probably also be seeing it in a similar fashion to the way you'll be seeing it. I don't imagine myself throwing money at it. Really, the only franchise, big shock, that I actually throw money at is Star Trek. Even when it's the stuff that I do not care about. Like, I'm not a huge fan of like Discovery as an example. I still watch every episode and I still like pay for Paramount Plus because I'm like, here, take my... Well, because I want to show support. I want them, when they're looking at their revenue, to be like, oh, we came out with a new Star Trek and it generated money. And I'm happy that I did that because like I said, wasn't a fan of Star Trek Discovery, but it was like, all right, well, here, take my money just so you know that Star Trek is still important. And then that resulted in Star Trek Prodigy, Lower Decks, and Strange New Worlds, all of which were fantastic. Now, Picard, I was very excited about, and turns out that's garbage, so that's unfortunate. Oof. But I was so excited for it. That was the one that I was looking forward to most, and terribly disappointing. But I have hopes for the third season. But that's a different podcast for a different day. But but yeah, no, I agree. I'd probably also be hoisting the black flag there for the D&D stuff.
And a lot of people are going back to that anyway with the millions of streaming services that are coming out. So
I know, everything is like, like, what is it? Peacock and Paramount Plus and HBO and Netflix and Hulu and Disney and ESPN. It's just, oh my goodness.
It's too much. I have my 3 standards. I have Netflix, Hulu, and Disney Plus. And then I borrow HBO Max from a friend. They made a profile for me. So
nice. Yeah, I've got Hulu, Disney, ESPN because it's part of the bundle. I don't actually care about ESPN except for the occasional hockey game for something. And then Paramount Plus, like I said, HBO, Netflix.
And
I
even
think the only thing I don't
Netflix
have
is
is-
on thin ice with me, especially after what's happening with The Witcher.
Mhm.
Liam freaking Hemsworth replacing
Well, but I mean,
no.
I agree with the exception of a lot of people weren't sure how, Henry would do when he first took the role either, and then he like crushed it. So I'm trying to hold out hope that way in terms of like, well, I don't know, I was a little doubtful when he took it and then he nailed it. So maybe Hemsworth will do that too. Like, I don't want to be too judgmental till I see it because I am like super like, oh, that wasn't a good idea.
I was never in doubt of Henry, but I have ulterior motives for that.
Your second sexual awakening.
Yes.
He's a massive nerd. He understands the source material. Like,
Yeah.
Doesn't he? He like engages with a lot of different material like that. Isn't he like also Warhammer 40K guy?
That's what he's going to be doing now. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's a
that's
super
what it was.
nerd. He builds
Yeah.
his own computers. He's like a walking Witcher encyclopedia.
Yeah. So I feel like I didn't know any of that, but if I knew that going in, I would have known that he would have done fine.
That guy got royally screwed though, because I think he left The Witcher because of the Superman stuff, didn't he? Isn't that the main reason why?
There
was, like,
was some
coming-
there's been back
Controversy
and
stuff.
forth about it. Like some people are speculating that he had some problematic behavior on set with some female coworkers. Some people think it was because of Superman, but originally he was behind and committed to The Witcher. So he said, I'll do all 7 seasons as long as they stick to the story. So then some people were thinking that they veered away from the source material, and he was just like, nah, fam, not happening. There's a lot of different theories about that, and
I really hope it's not that first theory. I have a little trouble. I mean, I don't want not to. Maybe I sound inappropriate here, but it is almost difficult for me to believe that the first one could be the case, if only because of it being him. Because I mean, like, I don't even play for that team, but I gotta say, if he like made any advancements towards me, I'd probably be considering it. I'd be like, well, I don't play for that team, but you are you.
you're like, I do now.
Yeah, exactly. It's
For
like,
you?
And that was his sexual.
so it's like kind of hard for me to believe that he could have any sort of inappropriate advances, because when it's coming from him, it always seems appropriate.
Oh goodness. I feel like that is the best way to end. Also because we're at almost 3.5 hours.
I'm very sorry.
Whew.
It was a big topic.
This is perfect though. That's amazing amazing content. Like, it was good discussion. I enjoyed every second of it. Thank you, Jesse, for just making a fantastic, just telling us all this important information. Because I feel like, even if you aren't a D&D player, or any sort of role-playing member or person like that, like, this is still important stuff, because it's always good to know when these organizations, these companies that control a lot of the media that we consume, and when I mean media, I don't mean the mainstream media. I mean like content, like the actual things that we enjoy, like books, games, movies, whatever. It's always good to keep a check on them to make sure that they don't try and steal more money from us than it is necessary to keep them running.
Yeah,
So-
and I think it's important too, because people always think that, well, my dollar won't make a difference, my voice won't make a difference, it's not going to change anything, and obviously it did. The community came together and caused them to backpedal in a very big
Mhm.
way, and whether or not they stick to that backpedaling remains to be seen. But
I think it'll be up to the community to make sure that they continue to hold their feet to the fire and make sure that they, stick to what they said they'd do.
if they can do that, that's awesome. And I think that's important for people to see, because especially in other communities like the art community and everything that's going on with AI there, that could be a whole episode in itself. There is a lawsuit going through finally, but that's because people didn't stop talking about it. They were advocating for themselves and other artists. And I think we need to see more stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I appreciated most was the passion you have for the subject. I think it really came through, like in the discussion itself. I know that all of us have played D&D. I haven't played in a lot longer than I would prefer. Yeah, so it's been a long time for me. So, but even just being aware of it and having some past with it, it reignited like some of that passion in me. Just seeing how passionate you are about it, and I think that.
Yay!
Go
play D&D.
Yeah, well, I think that's like the best thing.
Teach your friends or your kids.
Yeah,
I know that's what Shane's brother did. He just wrangled his girls into playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, nice. Yeah, but I think that's honestly the best thing to say is that like your passion really shone through, and I appreciate that. So thank you for taking the time to educate us and share your passion with us.
Thank you. I enjoyed doing it. Again, it is a big interest of mine, and I will talk about it forever until I die.
Awesome.
And I believe that is going to close the cover on this stellar installment of the Disinformed podcast. We thank you all for being here as per usual. There's a link tree down in the show notes that you can go to if you want to find all of our irrelevant or relevant socials, and you can follow us there. And please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the show. It helps us out, and of course, it gets new episodes winging your way every lovely Monday morning as soon as they hit the airwaves. And then, of course, if you could like, subscribe, rate, and review, we would love to hear from you. And beyond that, we hope that you have a wonderful week. And so, for the Disinformed podcast this week, I'm Shane.
And I'm
Michael.
I'm Jesse.
And zippity zoop, we're out of here.